In case it wasn't painfully obvious yet, the car I'm in is tiny. In fact, it's the smallest sedan that BMW makes in India. Small does not mean insignificant, does it? When it comes down to it, we equate small to less, big to more, right? So with that in mind, how does the 2 Series Gran Coupe fare? Well, if it were judged solely on its looks, I'd say it fares pretty well. I know, it's a subjective topic and my thoughts on it should bear no real consequence on a buyer's perspective. That said, this car's been around for a while and the way it looks has seriously grown on me. That flattened wide rear is now a standout talking point for me, as is the sedan's rather clear-cut profile shots.
Down, they just think they are. Never little wannabe gangster trying to play hard.
But there are some curious elements to the car that I want to bring to the fore. 17-inch wheels. I'm glad they're not 18s. They look great, but at the same time, if you're committing to the format, I would have liked slightly thicker sidewalls so that it can just absorb bumps better. Next up, frameless doors. Now, they look cool, sure, but I can't for the life of me figure out an actual benefit that they provide. Unless you count just being more expensive as a benefit. This is self-explanatory. I mean, I wouldn't sit here. Would you? Unless I do something like this, maybe. Ow. Yeah, no. And then there's this. That's 430 liters, or about half the size of a regular-sized adult. And then there's the fact that this is a front-wheel drive car. Now, this really shouldn't matter to you much. Doesn't matter to most people. But given the fact that most BMWs are rear-wheel drive cars, the purists, let's call them that, decided to sit up, scoff, and just be wide-eyed. This is most unusual, they'd say. This is wrong, they'd add. They're living in the past, is what I'd counter. This is BMW. They know what they're doing. The 2-liter diesel working over here makes 190 horsepower and 400 Nm. And like I said, the power goes to the front wheels. Now, whereas this should generally imply that there's more load on the front axle because it has to pull the car forwards, stop it, and make direction changes, bestowing it with inherent understeer in the process, BMW is not one to conform to the laws of physics. There's a very real element of fun driving the 220D. It's sprightly, makes quick direction changes, and has an ample amount of grip for most situations. It will hit 100 kmph from a standstill in just a shade over 7 seconds. And that's pretty good for a car like this. Even the steering wheel, it's not limp and lifeless. There's a good amount of feel. Coming out of corners, really hard especially, you're not left feeling helpless. Quite the contrary, in fact. At this point, I do have to bring up the fact that the ride is a bit on the firmer side. So, over expansion joints and bumps, you do end up jiggling around a little bit. Like I said earlier, thicker sidewalls, that would go a really long way. As for the gearbox, well, it's an 8-speed torque converter, which means it's more than capable of putting down those 400 Newton meters to the front wheels with ease. It really is a joy, this tiny BMW. And let's not forget, there's plenty to like about the cabin too. There's a nice panoramic sunroof, dual zone climate control, a 10.25-inch touchscreen that can be controlled via voice, the steering wheel buttons, touch of course, and even hand gestures. There's also 6 airbags, ABS, dynamic stability control, cornering brake control, and a switchable traction control. So yes, it is tiny, but insignificant? Hardly. Definitely deserves a look. It may not have the stature of, let's say, an X1 or a similarly sized SUV, but it has its own vibe, and I really appreciate it for that. Anyway, thank you for watching. This is Forbes India Momentum. I'm Ronak, and I'm gonna go and see if BMW can loan me one of these in blue, because it's just Better that way.